How about a favorite happy memory with Amina?
Oh my goodness. She was a chatty patty. She loved to talk all the time. Um, she was just very carefree. Both of them were very carefree, loving, happy. She was a prankster. I remember in the Taekwondo, she would be chatting up, and then the instructor would be like knuckles and toes, which meant a round of push ups. And then under their uniform, their Taekwondo uniform, they wore black or white shirts. And she was like starting this petition because she wanted pink. And they were like, no. And then she said, can we have pink wristbands? And they said, no. There was like a handful of girls, and the rest of them were guys. Although she's like, guys, wearing pink, it shows that your masculinity too. But she was just, they both were very funny.
She loved pink, by the way, right? That's what she would write
That
her
was her signature
notes.
color,
Yeah.
yes. And I did not like pink. Purple was my color, but pink is now my color. Life is better in pink. Both girls loved pink. They liked the color pink.
Hi guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. Truly, truly is. Before we start, let me give you my usual disclaimer that this video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so. It would really help me out, and I would really, really appreciate it. If you have not watched the video covering days 1, 2, and 3 yet, I would suggest going and watching that first and then coming back and watching this one, which is days 4 and 5. I was going to do 4, 5, and 6 together, but this one got really long again. So I'm just going to do 6 separately. But then at least you'll know everything that's going on and things you thought you knew. I there's so much there. I thought I knew this case well, and there was a ton of things that I had no idea about. So I did the same with this. I did 4 and 5, and then as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to try to get 6 out as quickly as possible. Lastly, thank you again to Jon Chrymes. He did an interview with Ruth Trotter, who is the mother of Amina's boyfriend, Joseph. And he let me use clips from his interview. So, just like in the first video, I'm going to link him down below in the description box. Go check out his channel after this video. Go subscribe. Go say hello. He's a nice guy. And with that, let's start. Okay. Medical examiner, Dr. Amy Grzecki takes the stand, okay? Before the testimony even starts, the defense starts accusing her of falsifying documents, taking sick leave to take care of her sick child, which it's her time. So, in my opinion, whatever. But I'm not a medical examiner, so I guess I can't speak on how they run their show. But to me, I feel like nobody's more important than your child. He says that some of her cases were reassigned, which she admits to and says that that's not uncommon. She does admit that she resigned from this particular job in 2009, but she stands firm that in 2008 there were absolutely no issues with her job and that she has never had an issue with any of the autopsies that she has conducted. She becomes so upset over these false accusations that she actually asked the judge to allow her to be excused so that she can call her lawyer. It's definitely my opinion that the defense does a lot of objecting to a lot of ridiculous things. Again, this is just my very unprofessional opinion. They do a lot of objecting to a lot of ridiculous things, a lot of trying to discredit the state's witnesses. Now, granted, the state had Patricia, enough said, and the state had Edgar Ruiz, who is Amina's fake boyfriend, enough said. But even with that, how do you defend the indefensible? So that's my stance on it. That's my opinion on it. next to the stand is a man by the name of Jorge Camacho. He was the maintenance worker for Canyon Apartments in Bedford, Texas. The apartment complex that Yaser's son Islam had an apartment at. And the apartment complex that Yaser Saeed was hiding out at. Okay? Skipping ahead a little bit, an FBI agent by the name Daniel Jimenez takes the stand later on, and he says that when he learned that Islam Saeed had rented an apartment there, he reached out to the owners and he explained the situation. He ends up building a relationship with them, and they help assist the FBI with any and all things that they needed. Okay, so going back to the maintenance worker, August 14th, 2017, a busted pipe. There's a busted pipe in Islam's apartment. So the maintenance worker goes over there and he says that he's knocking on the door, and the door was locked from the inside. And the person wasn't letting him in. So he goes back down. He speaks to the management, and management tells him, go back up, use your key, and go into the apartment. So Jorge goes back up, and he's really cute too. But he says that he knocks again just to be polite, and he tells the person inside, please let me in, it's an emergency. So finally he gets the person to open the door for him. The person has a cap pulled down real low. He lets him in. He lets him into the bathroom, and he stands behind Jorge while he's doing his work. And after he's done, he thanks him and he leaves. It is then disclosed to the FBI that the person inside the apartment was indeed Yaser Saeed. But by the time FBI secures a search warrant for the apartment, Yaser Saeed is already gone. Okay, so let's go over a few pictures that were taken at Copper Canyon Apartments that night, the night after he escaped. Okay, this picture is the Copper Canyon sign. This is the building. This is Yaser's upstairs balcony and the door leading out to the balcony. These are the rocks below the balcony, and then Yaser's glasses that were found on the rocks. These are the stairs going up to the apartment. That left side window with the light on is the light to Yaser's apartment. This is a picture of Yaser's open door and window. And then this is the broken window done by the FBI after they got their search warrant. Okay, see, when you enter into the apartment, the balcony door is to the right. This is the apartment. More of the apartment. This is Mohsen Saeed, which is Yaser's brother, his driver's license. This is Islam Saeed, Yaser's son, his passport. And then this is a document with Islam Saeed on it when he was much younger. Special Agent Daniel Jimenez takes the stand. Daniel's part of the team that helps take down Yaser Saeed. Okay, first, Agent Jimenez breaks down how one gets on the top 10 most wanted list. So I put it in here real quick because it's actually pretty interesting. Okay, so top 10 most wanted list is managed out of FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. And it's been around since the 50s. It was initially started to bring media attention to those that have committed violent crimes in an attempt to garner tips to locate a fugitive. Okay, so what is the process to get on the list? There are 56 field offices in the FBI, and each field office has a fugitive program. There are obviously 10 slots for the program, and then offices submit their requests to headquarters, and then headquarters decides who gets on the list. Okay, so prerequisites to get on this list. Your case must be unsealed, and the case has to have a federal warrant for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Yaser Saeed was placed on this list in December of 2014. The other most widely known fugitive on the top 10 list would be this dirtbag scumsucker right here, Osama bin Laden. Next, really interesting point made by Agent Jimenez deals with the glasses that were found on the rocks after Yaser escaped. Because remember, the positive ID that was given to them was by the maintenance worker, right? So they take the glasses and they performed a DNA kinship analysis, which means they took a DNA swab from Patricia and then they took the blood of Amina and Sarah, and from there they were able to determine that the DNA on the glasses found belonged to the father of Amina and Sarah, which would be Yaser Said. The day after the search warrant is executed, Hassan Said, which is the brother of Yaser Said, and 2 others show up to the house to collect all of Islam's belongings. Less than a week after this took place, Islam Said and an associate crossed the border into Canada from the Windsor Bridge in Michigan. And then approximately 6 months after this, they return. The agent goes on to explain how all the surveillance techniques they used in hopes of capturing Yaser ended up being unsuccessful, and how Yaser Said's family refused to help them or cooperate with them, which should not come as a surprise, especially because a huge majority of them were the ones that were helping to hide him. Okay. So after this, they skip ahead to 2020, where the FBI is able to gain access to Hassan Said's financial records. Okay. From there, they eventually are able to set up surveillance at Hassan Said's home in Jordan, Texas, which is actually under his daughter's names. Okay. He testifies that he witnessed Islam Said, which is the son of Yaser, in the company of Hassan Said, which is the brother of Yaser, multiple times. Often at the Home Depot, getting supplies that could be used for construction, as well as at the home where Yaser Said was hiding out and ultimately arrested in Justin, Texas. And then the home belonged to Hassan Said's daughters, who were Yaser Said's nieces. Okay. It would be in August of 2020 that the FBI would learn more about the home and begin to watch it very closely. But not around the clock as of yet. They first began spot watching it, okay, for a few days. Then they learn about another residence in Euless, Texas. This residence is where Hassan Said's daughter, Islam Said, and Yaser Said's nephew were all living together. And then the second daughter of Hassan Said lived somewhere else with her husband, her children, and her mother. Okay? So, they really only talk about the 2 homes. The first home is the home in Jordan where Yaser Said is hanging out. The second home is the home in Euless where Hassan Said, Islam Said, Hassan's one daughter, and Yaser Said's nephew are all living. Okay. Then from there, the FBI began working with a local garbage company to have them bring the trash from the Jordan home down to the FBI so that they can go through the trash, right? So, when they pull the trash that the garbage company brings them from the Jordan home, they find nothing but yard debris, like leaves. So that's when they decide to begin to watch the home 24/7, because they know someone is living in the home and they know that there should be garbage other than leaves. Obviously. That's not rocket science. So, he says either that same day or the day after, they see Hassan Said and Islam Said going into the home multiple times. They observe them bringing like food into the home, bags of cement into the home, and construction items into the home.
And at 16:07:51, who exits the passenger side and who exits the driver's side?
Islam was the passenger and Yasin was the driver.
Who opens the door at 16:08:02?
Islam.
Does it appear that he and Yasin Said are retrieving items from the back of the RAV4?
Yes, they appear to be bringing in groceries again.
And here at 16:08:30, could we see kind of a closer up view of that bag of groceries that Islam
Yeah,
said?
we were trying to get a good look at the grocery bags as they brought them in.
And then at 16:08:40, does it appear that they enter the Justin residence?
Yes, ma'am.
He goes on to say that then they observe Islam and Hassan Saeed going into the home multiple times with groceries and exiting the home with trash bags that they would put in their car and drive away with. I will give it to him. That was good thinking, but it was not good enough. In the evening hours, they would observe a light that would go on and off in the home. More specifically, on August 19th, 2020, they observed the shadow of an adult walking from one side of the home to the other side of the home. This adult would end up being Yaser Saeed. Spoiler.
What do we see at that point?
What appears to be a male or a person walking from the left side of the screen to the right.
So I'm marking here on, at about 21 seconds, we're looking out the window, and that's where I want to draw the jurors' attention to. And then again, that figure.
August 25th, 2020. Hassim and Islam Saeed enter the home in the afternoon and they stay there until about 8:45 p.m. They exit the home with bags in their hands, garbage bags in their hands that they put into the truck, into the back of their RAV4.
Okay. So at about 20:47:02, we see the lights flash on that RAV4 and an individual exits the residence. Do you know who that is?
That's Islam.
And the camera kind of shifts and it focuses in on what Islam Saeed is doing. Are you able to make out at about 8:47:32 what it appears that he's doing?
Yeah, Islam's opening the rear of the RAV4 and placing what appear to be two tied up grocery bags into the back, which was consistent with what we had observed him do in the past.
Now at 20:48:03, we see someone at the door of the residence. Do you know who that person is?
That is just seen.
And here on the left side of the screen, we see another individual. Is that Islam Saeed?
It appears to be Islam, yes. Yes, that's Islam.
$20:48:40. What is it? Does it appear that Yasin and Islam Saeed are doing at this point?
Islam's placing a shovel in the back of the vehicle, and then they're, I believe at this point, leaving the residence in the RAV4.
$20:49:19. We see that RAV4 back out of the driveway and exit the residence.
Yes, ma'am.
From there, agents follow them about 17 or 18 miles to a Panera Bread. They get out of the car, they throw out the trash, and they leave. Now, from this point, the only trash that has been getting thrown out at the home in Jordan has been leaves. This is why. Why would you take your trash 18 miles away to Panera Bread when you can take it, I don't know, 18 steps to the curb? The trash was taken to the FBI, where they found items such as water bottles, Coke cans, watermelon rinds, and many cigarette butts, which Yaser Saeed was a very big smoker.
And what do we see here, Agent White?
Those are the 2 bags that we collected from the trash bin outside of Panera Bread.
And in 138, we see them sort of separated. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. State's Exhibit 139, what do we see here?
This is one of the bags after it's been opened. We laid out paper and along with Irving PD's, Irving Police Department had a forensic person there with us.
A crime scene analyst
Yes,
who
ma'am.
assisted? And did y'all take, what kind of items were found in one of these bags in State's Exhibit 139?
Primarily of interest to us at the time were cigarette butts, which you can see here in the photo, as well as Coke cans, and then ultimately also water bottles.
Okay, so State's Exhibit number 140, we see some of those water bottles, we see the cigarette butts you're talking about, the Coke cans. Do you know what this is right here?
It's an egg crate full of coffee grounds, and everything is covered in like different kinds of, like apparently chicken juice or something to that effect.
Some sort of debris or
Yes,
waste
ma'am.
or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
State's Exhibit 149 is just basically a further review of what other items were contained within that bag. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then State's Exhibit number 142, what do we see here?
We see clothing items, eggshells, a pencil, and some sort of cream.
Okay. State's Exhibit 143, again, we see that water bottle. Do you know what these red pieces of ripped paper are, or cardboard are?
It's some sort of, I don't know if they were cigarette rolling papers or some sort of tobacco product.
Were you aware that Yaser Saeed did smoke cigarettes?
Yes, ma'am.
State's Exhibit number 144, another angle of the trash. And then State's Exhibit 145 again. And then State's Exhibit 146. You guys about the chicken juice, we see something right here in State's Exhibit 146 regarding chicken, the word, part of the word chicken, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. From there, the FBI was able to obtain 2 search warrants, one for the home in Jordan and one for the home in Euless. They were also able to obtain a criminal complaint for Islam Saeed for harboring a fugitive based on the incident back from the Copper Canyon apartment complex. August 26, 2020. Both search warrants are executed at exactly the same time, somewhere between 5:30 and 5:45 p.m. And I would have loved to be a fly on the wall to watch that one go down. Yaser Saeed came out, though, and he gave himself up without incident.
Walk me through your day that Yaser was captured.
So I just got home and I received a phone call from a family member and they asked, "Are you driving or are you home?" I said, "No, I just actually walked in the door." And they said, "Okay, well, I have something to tell you." And of course, my first thought was with COVID, and maybe somebody in the family got COVID. And she said they caught Yaser. And I really don't remember much after that. So she's telling me what I said. She said I asked her to repeat it. I repeated it. And then she said I started screaming and crying and just elated. And then I told her, I have to go. And so then I started reaching out to people, calling people, texting people. And then my phone started blowing up. So the first hour, I was like literally in shock. I was like, oh my God, I need to see him. I need to see him in cuffs. I need to know for sure that it's him, that it's not a mistake, because throughout these 12 years, the documentary has been getting tips about sightings of Yaser, and they even send pictures, and they've been of his family members. So I'm like, I need to see him in handcuffs with the police so that I know that it is really him. And so that night, I was just so full of emotion. I hadn't, I just couldn't fathom the idea. It was like, oh my gosh, it's like winning the lottery. Is it real? Pinch me, slap me, something, And then I was overcome with emotion. I was just crying. My body started shaking uncontrollably. I really haven't, up until maybe last night or the night before, haven't been able to get really good sleep. I've been up a lot. I think it's just the adrenaline still from everything. And a lot of people were asking me had I spoke to my son, and I was just kind of like, I was nervous to actually reach out to him. The producer of The Price of Honor, he called me and he's like, have you talked to him? I said, actually, I'm afraid to talk to him. I don't know how he's going to react. And I was at my house, he was at his house, so I didn't know. He goes, okay, let me reach out to him. So he was one of the first people that talked to Joseph. And then he called me back and he said, he's okay, he just needs time. And I said, okay, as long as I know he's okay. So then later that night, my son called me and he's like, Mom, we've been waiting for this for a long time and it is unbelievable. I mean, both of us are still trying to process it. And then we got bonus with Islam's and Yasin's arrest as well. So it's like they're coming. They're all going to have their day in court.
After Yaser Saeed is taken into custody, the search warrant is executed, and officers find various items such as the FBI supervisor special agent's business card, receipts from Home Depot, several cell phone devices, and Yaser Saeed's passport. Okay? Remember that one. September 3rd, 2020, a second search warrant was executed on the home because some of the items that were photographed were not seized like they should be. So a judge allowed them to go back into the home for a second time and retrieve those items, such as Yaser Saeed's passport.
When this happened and SWAT was at their house in Louisville, they invited Patricia to come in and grab things that she needed. And instead of her grabbing clothing or items, to do your daily things, she grabbed Yaser's passport, all of his papers, all laptops, videos, things that she could gather. So they were all a part of it, including Islam and including the brothers from day one.
During the second search warrant, they found a firearm. They also saw the garage door was converted from a typical garage door to French doors. Okay, and the inside of the garage was in the process of being turned into a livable space, along with upgrades to the inside of the home, which were consistent with the visits that were being made by Islam and Yaser Saeed to Home Depot.
This is the front of the house that we've seen so far, and the door appears to be open. And exhibit 152, what angle of the home is this?
This is the rear of the residence.
Now, are you able to tell the jurors, at least from this angle, where that build out was with the cot?
Yes, it would have been, this is the back covered H, the back room that was marked as H, and then on the other side of that wall was the build out.
Okay. And then another angle from State's Exhibit 53 of the backyard. And then, is this the sunroom you were talking about? Or is that the other H we're talking about?
This is the back H, the covered patio with the dotted line around it is this space. This would be the room that I don't know if it would be a sunroom or not, but it was like a rear den.
And then the other side of the back of the house here in State's Exhibit 155. Now, let's go into the house. Now, I'm going to show these in sort of a panorama view. State's Exhibit 156. When you entered the Justin home, did it appear that there were furniture and personal belongings and items as if someone was residing in the home?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so we see a couch here in State's Exhibit 156. Facing the doorway here in 152, we see a television set. And then another set of couches here in 158. There appear to be, here in State's Exhibit 159, there appears to be a bookshelf with photographs and things like that. And then the opposite side here in 160, looking towards the door. This would be the living room, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's move to the kitchen here in States Exhibit 161. Again, were there a lot of personal items and things like that within the kitchen?
Yes, ma'am. It looked well lived in.
There appears to be some Ajax soap, dishes, things that would make a person comfortable. Paint pots and pans to be able to cook. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a refrigerator along with food here at the top of the refrigerator in States Exhibit 163. And now, as we're exiting the kitchen, where are we going from this point in 164?
I believe this.
Is this the living room we see here on this open?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yes,
That's okay. That's okay. And that was a bad question. I apologize. But you can actually see some of the personal items we see from the living room here.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there's a short hallway. Does that lead to various bedrooms contained within the house?
Yes, there should be a bedroom on either side of the home.
Agent White, do you remember how many bedrooms were in the home?
I believe 2.
And so we're walking down that short hallway again, here in States Exhibit 165. And then we see here 166, a bedroom that contains, at least from the entryway, various personal items, including suitcases. And then here in 167, we see a bed, shoes, clothing, Listerine, all indicative of a person living in the home.
Yes, ma'am.
And then this would be facing towards that same door, towards the entry of that room of that door of 168.
Yes, ma'am.
The next room we're getting to is 169. Again, we see bedding, a suitcase, bottles. In 170, we see those same items as you enter the room. And in 171, we see a dresser, photographs, iron, a clock. Again, personal items that would indicate someone was residing in the home.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, let's go to 172. Can you tell us what we're looking at here in terms of the entryway? Where are we facing at this point?
I believe this is looking into the converted garage.
Okay, so showing you 173. Is this part of the converted garage?
Yes, ma'am.
There appears to be mugs, water, and chairs and whatnot. In fact, there's 3 chairs. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
States Exhibit 174, another angle of this converted garage. And another angle here in States Exhibit 175 of the converted garage.
Yes, ma'am.
And then 176 to give the jurors perspective of where we're looking. This is the converted garage, and this would be the kitchen right here. Is that right?
That's correct.
We
Yes,
can
ma'am.
see the refrigerator in the back of this image. Let me get to 178. So we see this lattice work that we talked about at in the earlier exhibits. There we go. What room are we looking at in this in States Exhibit 178?
It's the covered, what I would call a covered patio.
Okay. And then an angle to the left of that in 179.
Yes, ma'am. The covered patio.
Now let's go to 180. Where are we in position to that covered patio here in 180?
This is on towards the front of the house on the other side of the wall.
Okay. In States Exhibit 181, are we going into that other room marked H here?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the doorway. And we see what appears to be concrete. Do you see that in States Exhibit 181?
Yes, ma'am. We had observed them bringing in wheelbarrows full of concrete.
Did that appear to be consistent with the build-out that you observed later on?
Yes, ma'am.
States Exhibit 182. And then States Exhibit 183, again, a closer up of that concrete. Now let's enter the room here in States Exhibit 185.
Yes, ma'am.
Which room of the house is States Exhibit 186?
I believe this is the H room that was located towards the front of the house that had the French doors.
Panorama here in States Exhibit 188. Okay, let me get you to States Exhibit 191. We see a rocking chair here, and we see what appears to be some damage to a wall or some cutout here. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes, this is the entrance to that I don't know if hidden room that was built into the house.
93. This is leading, this appears to be the dryer perhaps,
Yes, ma'am.
and the water heater in States Exhibit 193. And then we see another door leading into the next part of the home. Is that where you find the build out?
Yes, ma'am.
Or the hidden room, 195? Can you tell the jurors what we see here in 195?
It's a cot with a pillow on it laid over on its side.
Now, to the left, we see what appears to be sort of a piece of gypsum or maybe wall. I'm not sure. Is that what you were referring to earlier?
Yes, ma'am. It's a piece of gypsum.
And then here in States Exhibit 196 is the other side of that cot. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And 197, does it appear that this wall came with, this wall that we see here made out of plywood came with the house?
No, ma'am. It looks like it's part of their construction project.
Let's go into the refrigerator here in States Exhibit 198. Earlier we talked about, it plays part of the surveillance video where Islam and Yasin Saeed were bringing in watermelon. Do you see watermelon here in the refrigerator?
I do,
in
yes.
States Exhibit 199?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it fair to say that there's other items of food to keep a person nourished while they're residing in that home?
Yes, ma'am.
Powerade, peanut butter, ice cream, lettuce and pasta sauce, Gatorade, that sort of thing. I'm going to show you States Exhibit 201. Do you recognize what this item is in this open drawer in States Exhibit 201?
It appears to be a wig.
And the closer up here in 202.
Yes, ma'am. A wig.
I'm going to show you States Exhibit 204. This drawer is open and there appears to be a card in there. Did you ever observe this card, or do you know what this card is?
I've seen the photo of it, and yes, that is Mario Verna's card. Business card.
And in States Exhibit 205, this is Agent Verna's card that says, "Call me please, Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent," with his address and the phone number. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Agent Verna was one of the lead case agents for several years prior to Agent Jimenez taking over. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Former Dallas County Medical Examiner Dr. Amy Grzecki comes back to the stand. She was the one that asked to step down and call her lawyer because the defense was trying to discredit her. Okay? She clears everything up and questions begin. Dr. Grzecki performed Amina's autopsy, and it was performed on January 2nd, 2008 at 7:45 a.m. Amina had one wound to the center of her chest that went through the middle lobe of her right lung, the lower lobe of her right lung, and it exited between her ribs on the right side and her right upper back.
She had approximately 1,500 milliliters of blood in her right pleural cavity. The pleural cavity is the right chest cavity. 1,500 milliliters is not a number you're used to thinking about in America because we usually deal with cups. But if you think about the water bottles that we all carry around, that's 500 milliliters. So she had approximately 3 of those water bottles filled, 3 filled water bottles of blood in her right chest cavity. So that's a lot of blood in the right chest cavity. So it's 3 of those, 1,500 milliliters in the right pleural cavity. Yes, ma'am, exactly like that.
This is 500 milliliters.
Yes, ma'am. So 3 of those filled in the right of blood. And then she also had 50 milliliters of blood in her pericardial sac. The pericardial sac is just a fibrous covering that covers the heart, which is in about the center of her chest.
The second wound was on her left lower chest. It passed through her ribs, stomach, pancreas, and spinal cord, and then it lodged in the bone. Either one of these wounds would be fatal because of the extreme amount of blood loss. Dr. Grzecki determined that Amina Saeed's cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds and her manner of death was homicide. Dr. Grzecki finishes by identifying Amina's clothing from that evening. Okay. Again, how do you defend the indefensible? The defense keeps trying to push this narrative that there's a possibility that because of the wounds, that there was a lack of oxygen to the brain that could cause hallucinations, right? This is what they're saying to Dr. Grzecki, who performed Amina's autopsy. In other words, when Sarah said her father did this to her, she could have been hallucinating. Except they're asking these questions to Dr. Grzecki with regards to Amina, who was not the one who called 911.
You don't know when this body was shot.
I do not know that.
Okay. You don't know how long before you did the autopsy this body was shot.
I wouldn't know that, correct.
Okay. And if, for instance, there is evidence that that person or another person said to somebody, my father was the one that shot me. That may not be correct, right? Because they're hallucinating, they're having auditory hallucinations, they're bleeding out. And in your testimony, you showed us how the lungs of this person were filling up with blood, right? That may not be correct. It can be that they're suffering from auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, everything else.
I'm going to object to this line of questioning as it only can produce a what if. She as a medical examiner doesn't have any information to answer any kind of question like this one. It is broad and it's specific and it's just elicited for her to go, I guess anything's possible.
Mr. Lawler,
I do not think
narrow
she's
your
qualified.
question. Narrow your question or rephrase your question.
Does the lack of oxygen to the brain, can it cause altered mental states?
Yes.
He then reiterates how Dr. Grzecki put in for a sick day at work when it was a personal day. Because again, how do you defend the indefensible? Okay, next up, Dr. Janice Townsend Parchman. She was a medical examiner for over 30 years and also the doctor that performed the autopsy of Sarah Saeed, the one that called 911. Just saying.
How many gunshot wounds did Sarah Saeed have total?
9.
9.
Okay, she begins breaking down all 9 of Sarah's wounds, not in order. Okay. Wound 1 entered Sarah's mid-upper chest. The bullet went through the right lung before it exited.
So looking at gunshot wound 1 and the entrance there, what can we see surrounding that gunshot wound?
That's what we call stippling.
Okay.
Stippling is very small little abrasions or scrapes made by unburned and partially burned particles of gunpowder, which are discharged from the gun along with the bullet. And if the thing is, you have air resistance. So since they are so small, they don't have much inertia and they disperse rather quickly in the air. And if, for most handguns, if the muzzle of the gun is more than about a foot away from the body, these particles will disperse and not manage to strike the body and create the little abrasion. In addition, she was wearing clothing, which means the gun has to be even closer, everything else being equal, because the particles have to go through the clothing in order to make the little scrapes in her skin.
Is the clothing called like an interceding target? Or how would you refer to it?
Interposed target.
Interposed, okay?
Yes.
And so in this case, Sarah Saeed was wearing the clothing, but we still have stippling here.
Yes, yes. So again, if hypothetical, if for bare skin the gun would leave stippling, cause stippling when discharged at, say, 1 foot, with clothing it's going to have to be significantly closer because the gunpowder particles have to be able to get through the clothing and still have enough energy to make the little scrapes in the skin.
Wound 2 entered through Sarah's left upper chest. It went through the sternum and right lung before exiting from the right shoulder.
To gunshot wound 2,
Yes, this.
okay? And where was this found on the body?
Left upper chest.
Left upper chest. We see dark circles there. Would you refer to that as soot?
She has soot and stippling.
Okay. Will you tell the jury what soot is?
Okay, again, we're going back to most handguns, and when they're discharged, you know that you have a bullet coming out, and now you know that you also have the unburned and partially burned particles of gunpowder coming out, but you also have fully burned primer and fully burned gunpowder. And since it's fully burned, it actually does produce soot. Tiny, 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 tiny burned up particles, usually dark gray. They are so small that they can travel even less distance before being dispersed by air resistance. So, and again, she's wearing clothing. So to have soot deposited, the gun's got to be even closer.
Wound 3 was a contact range shot. It entered Sarah's left upper chest, fractured her left second rib, and penetrated the left upper lobe before exiting through her left shoulder.
It is gunshot wound number 3 that is the contact range shot. It's considered contact range because there was actually soot in the wound track. In other words, the soot had been driven inside her body. So you know that the muzzle of the gun is, for all practical purposes, in contact. Well, you had the clothing, but except for that, in contact with her.
So the term contact wound or contact range, or however you want to say it, would mean that the muzzle of the gun is making contact with her clothing or her body?
Well, with her clothing, okay, but probably compressing the clothing. At any rate, the gun gets discharged. All this comes out. The bullet, of course, makes a hole, and you get the soot also going into the hole.
Wound 4 entered Sarah's mid-upper abdomen, went through the left lobe of Sarah's liver, both walls of Sarah's stomach, and through her left kidney before exiting the left lower back. This girl. Wound 5 did not exit. It ended up lodging in her right buttocks. Wound 6 entered the left front of her armpit. It penetrated the left shoulder blade before exiting through the left shoulder. This poor thing. This is crazy. Wound 7 entered her left arm, popped out, went back in, and then finally exited through Sarah's left shoulder.
Gunshot wound number 7 of the left arm, as you can see, went through the axilla, did its exit re-entrance, and then went through soft tissues with the exit in the posterior left shoulder.
Wound 8 entered or exited the right side of the chest and entered or exited the right lower back. In other words, there are unsure which was the entrance wound and which was the exit wound, but both wounds were from shot number 8. Wound number 9 entered through the upper right arm and exited through the right arm.
And which of those injuries, if any, were fatal?
You really cannot separate it out because she has all 9 gunshot wounds. If you want to know what most people would think would be the most serious, clearly it's the ones involving the right lung, the liver, and the left kidney. But never get deceived by having watched too many old movies or too many television shows where the hero only has a flesh wound and he's just fine. Flesh wounds can kill you, especially muscle. Oh my goodness. Trust me, muscle bleeds like stink. Never turn your back on muscle.
Okay.
So they're all bad. If I had to pick one wound to sustain from her collection, it would be gunshot wound number 8, because it only goes through subcutaneous tissue. And subcutaneous tissue really doesn't bleed very much. But the others, all the others, at least involve muscle. And a fair number of them involve organs.
Dr. Townsend finishes by going over Sarah Saeed's clothing from that night. She determines that Sarah Saeed's cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds and Sarah's manner of death was homicide. And both girls' toxicology reports came back clean as a whistle, and both girls were perfectly healthy individuals. In other words, if not for their father, they would have lived very long lives. FBI Special Agent Randy White. Agent Randy aided in capturing Yaser Saeed. His main job on the case was surveying Islam Saeed and Haseen Saeed. Through license plate readers, he was able to determine that Islam and Haseen's vehicles were going to the home that Yaser Saeed was hiding out at multiple times a day, which again is what prompted them to put round-the-clock surveillance on the home. The home was watched for a total of 9 days after the video surveillance went up. So majority of this testimony was on point with Agent Jimenez because, again, the truth never changes, Patricia. Because the Saeeds began to catch on to being watched, agents had to rely heavily on plane surveillance and be sure that ground surveillance was always hidden best as possible. This was pretty interesting though. The air surveillance is a plane that circles around the home continuously for about 12 to 16 hours a day or until there's some sort of movement in the vehicle that they are surveying. So that's when the plane will stop circling and begin to follow the vehicle. Agents put the plane on the residence with a camera that never leaves their sight, ensuring that they stay with the vehicle throughout the entire movement. After the agents go through the garbage from Panera Bread, they determined that there was enough probable cause to obtain a search warrant for the Justin, Texas home and that Yaser Saeed was hiding out at, and for the home that Islam and Haseen Saeed were hanging out with. And again, both search warrants were executed at the exact same time. Okay. August 26, 2020, at Yaser Saeed's home in Justin, Texas. SWAT surrounds the entire home because he fled out the back of the Copper Canyon apartments when he was hiding out there. So they put flashbangs in the backyard, which they believe is what drove him to give himself up through the front. So what are flashbangs? Flashbangs are explosive devices that are just loud and bright. It disorients people, but when it goes off in your yard while you're inside your home, it makes it very well known that there is a police presence in your backyard.
Give me a countdown from 3, and on 1, I'll throw it, okay? Everybody plug your ears. Ready? Go ahead. 1, 2, 3, 1. Bang out!
This is a hand-drawn sketch of the description of the layout of the home in Jordan, Texas.
Now let me show you State's Exhibit number 251. What are we looking at here?
This is a sketch of the residence in Justin.
Okay, and it's a hand-drawn sketch, is that right?
It is hand-drawn.
Not drawn to scale?
No, ma'am.
Can you kind of tell us, so the jurors understand when we go through these crime scene photos of the search warrants, can you kind of tell us what each of these rooms represent? Like if, here at A, we see sort of an entrance or a doorway. What would that doorway be?
That's the doorway that we observed in the videos of Islam and Yasin coming in and out of the front of the residence.
So this is the front of the house?
Yes, ma'am.
And is A the living room?
It is.
And what is F and E?
F is a bedroom. E, Echo, is like a linen closet or something in the hallway.
And then we see C, is that the bathroom?
That is the bathroom.
Or tub. Is D another bedroom?
Delta, yes, that's a bedroom.
Thank you for correcting me. D is in Delta. What is B?
That is the kitchen.
And then can you tell us what G, H, and H, we see 2 H's here, what G, H, and H are?
Yes, G, I believe, was some sort of like a sunroom. I don't know how else to describe it, on the rear of the house. And then the H that's lower on the screen here is what formerly was a garage that had been converted into another kind of living space. And then the one further back with the dotted lines around it is a covered patio.
Okay. Now, did you enter the property on 6/2020?
I did, yes.
Did you observe any other sort of, did you observe any other room that was sort of man-made or built out in the house?
Yes, in room H, the lower H, you can see there's a little cutout on the top left corner. There was a room made of just drywall, and inside of it was a green cot with like a pillow and.
So can you circle, that screen also should work with your finger if you want to circle that room, the H you're talking about. So we see sort of what appears to be almost like a bed in that lower H that also has a W in that same box. Is
and
that
then,
right?
yes ma'am, and then right here against the wall was a piece of drywall with a handle on the back so that it could be picked up and pulled into place at this opening right here.
As if to conceal that specific room.
Yes ma'am.
So did it appear to you that that was another effort on the Saeed's part to conceal Yaser Saeed?
Yes ma'am.
Okay, next to the stand is FBI agent Mark Sedgwick. He specializes in cell phone records and analysis. So through his work, he's able to determine where a call is made from. Along with this, he's also part of the SWAT team. Okay, so Agent Sedgwick was asked to review the cell phones of Islam Saeed, Yaser Saeed, and Sarah Saeed. Okay, he focused in on 2 points from January 1st, 2008. The Saeed home, which is identified by a yellow home icon, and the Omni Mandalay Hotel where the girls were found, which is identified by a red flag icon. So between the hours of 1:01 p.m. and 6:15 p.m. on January 1st, 2008, the cell phones of Yaser Saeed and Sarah Saeed were pinging off cell towers around the Saeed home. You guys remember, because like he states, remember that this was 2008, so technology was not as advanced as it is today. Like today, you could determine that cell phones are traveling together. In 2008, they weren't there yet. At 6:57 p.m., Sarah receives a phone call from Edgar Ruiz's phone for 6 seconds. So, in case you don't remember, Edgar Ruiz is the person that's pretending to be Amina Saeed's boyfriend / fiance. Sarah makes an outgoing call at 7:33 p.m. to 911 that lasts 41 minutes. Yaser Saeed receives an incoming call from Patricia Saeed at 7:29 p.m. that lasts for 25 seconds. Both Yaser and Sarah Saeed's cell phones are in the same general area at these times. Then, starting at 7:55 p.m., Yaser's phone is either turned off, put on airplane mode, or the phone calls are ignored. And this particular phone never ends up reconnecting. Shocker. Fun times. Okay, guys, next to the stand is Yaser Saeed. All right. On a serious note, just want to give you guys a little warning before we continue, okay? Only because I just went through this and I feel like it's only right that I give you guys this heads up. So, as you watch and you listen to Yaser Saeed, you will slowly begin to feel your IQ dropping. Sorry. I'm trying to be... As you watch and listen to Yaser Saeed, you will slowly begin to feel your IQ dropping. Then you will begin to lose brain cells. So please proceed with caution. I'm not kidding though. Okay, let's start. If anybody cares, he was born in Egypt. He came to the United States in 1983, and he is an American citizen. He does not know when he became an American citizen, but the prosecution later reminds him that he became an American citizen on August 19th, 1999. He says that on January 1st, 2008, after Amina came home, he greeted her the same way that he always does. He claims that he wanted to talk to the girls and solve the issues that made them feel they needed to run away. Sure you did. When asked if his daughters, his responses for sure did not. Oh, sorry. I guess I should have mentioned that. Then the woman that's standing next to him, that's his interpreter, okay? So he's supposed to speak, he's supposed to answer everything in Arabic, and she's supposed to translate everything to English. That's the plan. He says that he planned to take them out to dinner, but then he felt as though he was being followed, and he began to fear for his safety.
We took the 121 and then took Highway 14.
Okay. Let me back up just a little bit. You were not going to dinner. You were just going to drive around to talk to your daughters about what was going on at home. Is that correct?
I was planning to take them to dinner and have a talk over the dinner, but I felt somebody was following me, so I did not continue.
At what point do you, if you remember, and I know this is a long time ago, but how soon after you left the home did you feel like you were being followed?
ما حسيتش بيهم في 121 لكن لما دخلت 114 حسيت ان في سيارة.
When I was going down 121, I didn't suspect anything, but when I went on Route 14, I felt somebody was following me.
Did you discuss this with your daughters?
حكيت لهم كل شيء.
قلت له في شعر ان في سيارة او اكتر من سيارة بتطاردنا.
I told them, I think there is one car or more than one car following us.
He says because of this, he chose to take them to the cab stand at the loft, which is the gentleman's club that he first met Jihad Tafal at. The taxi driver that he conned into letting him borrow his taxi and never going down to sign the paperwork stating that he was the one using the taxi. The same taxi that Amina and Sarah would later be found in. That's in the first video.
At this point, what decision do you make because you're feeling like you're being followed?
خدت مسار من 114 باتجاه اللانش في كلوب اسمه لانش لأن ده فيه كابستان in case I need مساعدة.
I took the 114 and then I went toward the Lodge Club because it has a cab stand in case I needed to stop.
And were you familiar with other drivers that were frequently at the lodge cab stand? You weren't going to the facility, right? You were going to the cab stand.
ما كنت داخل على البناية، كنت داخل على الكاب ستاند صحيح؟
أنا كنت داخل عشان أشوف مين في الستاند، لقيت الستاند فاضي مفيش سيارة.
I was seeing who is in the stand and I saw no cars. The stand was empty.
Okay. Why was it important to you to have witnesses at this location? Why were you choosing to first go to this location?
ليش اخترت هذا المكان؟ ليش مهم لك هذا المكان؟
لأن معظم اللي فيه عارفيني أصحابي وفيش شيء من الأمان، يعني شعور بالأمان ألجأ لناس أعرفهم.
I would know many of the people there. They are my friends, and the security that that would give me, the feeling of being secure.
Were you feeling the need for security because you felt like you were being followed?
إذن محتاج للأمان لأنه أنت الناس عم تلحقك صحيح؟
أكيد أنا حياتي في خطر.
Certainly, I felt my life is in danger and I needed that.
He claims that because he had friends over there that he felt safer, so that's why he took them to the cab stand at the Gentleman's Club. In his next breath, he says that after he parked the cab, he opened the door and here we go. In his next breath, he says that after he parked the cab, he opened the door and he ran into the wood and tree area, figuring that if people were following him, I'm sorry, I can't. Hold, please. Figuring that if the people that were following him were his daughter's friends, that he would let them solve the problem. I can't make this shit up. I could not even begin to make this up.
So I stopped at Riverside Drive. I opened the door and I ran into across to a wooden and tree area, and I thought if they are my daughter's friend, let them solve the problem together if they have issues.
I know that there's a lot going on right now with this testimony, and you have not had anybody hear your side in 14 years, but we need to make sure that we can flush out some of these details for the jury, okay? At what point did you communicate this plan with the girls to leave them with the car? I mean, are you communicating with them during the drive around? Can you elaborate on that a little bit, or explain that a little bit?
تسيبهم وتمشي خلال ما كنتوا مع بعض لبناتك شو قلت لهم؟
تتصرف السيارة معكم يسوق يسوق.
I told them the car is yours, you do whatever you want. Since they know how to drive, I left the car for them.
And why did you choose that location at that time to leave the girls with the cab and walk away on foot?
ليش اخترت هذا الموقع لتسيب بناتك وتروح؟ Because the bus station is well lit, like daylight, and it has also many surveillance cameras.
So you believe that you were leaving them in a safe place in order for you to take off on foot?
إذا اعتقدت إنه أنت تاركهم بمكان آمن وفينك تروح صحيح؟
كنت أعتقد هذا لكن
I was thinking this way, but unfortunately not.
And when you left on foot, am I correct from what you said earlier that you believe that if there was a threat, that threat would follow you?
إذا كنت خايف يلي كانوا بالسيارة يلحقوك إلك؟
طبعا أنا اعتقدت إن هو موضوع التخلص مني أنا شخصيا.
Of course, because I was thinking they were trying to get off me personally.
You had 14 years from 2008 to 2022, and that is the best that you come up with. I warned you guys. I warned you guys. He goes on to say that he told Amina and Sarah that because they know how to drive, that he was leaving the cab with them to do whatever they wanted with it. He believed that because the spot that he left the girls at was well lit and had many surveillance cameras, that the girls would be safe. But unfortunately, that was not the case.
And I want to be perfectly clear on this. When you left the girls in the cab, they were alive and well, correct?
Certainly.
Now, what was the plan? Were you going to meet them somewhere else, meet them at home? When you decided to leave on foot to potentially draw this threat away and leaving them with the car, when were you going to reconnect with your daughters?
سبتهم وقررت تمشي. شو المخطط أنت وياهم؟ تعمل إيه؟ يروحوا فين؟
الحقيقة ما كانش عندي خطة معينة في الوقت ده. بس
At that point, I did not have a plan in mind. I went on foot, hoping that I will see one of my friends and maybe he will give me a ride, but I did not have a specific plan of what to do at that point for them also.
And is that in part because of, was there a sense of urgency? Were you scared about the situation?
دي تعتبر كأنه واحد يتبعك وانت معاكي your kids. That's very dangerous. يعني it's like كأنه اغتيال.
I felt close to somebody will be coming and assassinating me while I have my children with me. So yes, it was a scary situation.
Now, for the rest of the night, you stay on foot, is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
The defense asks him if he was scared about the situation, and he says yes, because he thought that somebody was coming to assassinate him in front of his children. So just like all parents would do in this situation, they would leave their child and the threat in the car, and they would escape on foot, because that makes perfect sense, right? Wrong! Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. He goes on to claim that the first time he heard about Amina and Sarah was when he arrived at the Waffle House. He heard that something happened to somebody, but he didn't know who. They were talking about an accident, and then he later learned that it was Amina and Sarah. When asked why he didn't stop and tell security that he was being followed and he was scared, he said because security was inside. When asked why he didn't go inside, he said that he didn't think about it.
It took me some time to get into the Waffle House. I don't know how long, because I was going on my feet. When I arrived, or as soon as I arrived, I heard that something has happened to somebody, but I don't know who. When I arrived to the Waffle House, I heard some talking about some accident, but I wasn't sure what it was about.
And now, is the wooded area, I'm sorry, yes.
They were talking about the accident, and that's how I know there was an accident.
And then you later learned that, in fact, it wasn't an accident, that your daughters had been murdered?
Certainly.
Yaser, none of us were there that night. And we're all here together now. If you could go back in time, would you have still made the same decision that you did in that moment to leave on foot and leave the girls with the cab?
لو رجع بيك الزمن تاخد نفس القرار وبتسيب بناتك بالسيارة وبتمشي على رجليك؟
قرار غبي جدا.
Definitely not, because this was a very stupid decision that I made.
He says that he only answered Patricia's phone call because he had his phone in the car. And he never told Patricia that he was scared either.
Going back to 114 in the Lodge Club, that is a gentleman's club, isn't it?
Almost, yes.
It's a gentleman's strip club, right?
Not only men, also women.
You were going to stop at the Lodge Club, right?
I needed to park at their cab stand, and I wanted to make sure there was cars.
So did you stop or did you not stop?
I did not stop.
But there was security there, right?
There's taxis who stand out there, has nothing to do with security. Security of the club is normally inside the club.
So the club had security, correct?
Only one security, and he wasn't looks around, and he takes the dancers to their car sometimes.
So the club had security, yes. Okay.
Yes.
You didn't tell security that you were being followed, right? You didn't stop. You didn't tell them that you needed help.
Security was not outside to begin with.
But you could have gone inside and told them you were scared.
I did not have that idea at that moment. My girls were with me, and I didn't want to take them into the club with me.
And you didn't want to leave them alone either, right?
At the club, you mean?
Ever. You never wanted to leave them alone. And you didn't want to leave them alone at the club.
There is a difference between the first situation and the club.
Patricia called you on your phone, didn't she?
I remember, but I don't know details of that call. I don't remember it. It was a very short phone call.
So you did have your phone with you?
In the car.
Right.
I had it in the car.
Right, so you had a phone with you.
In the car.
You didn't tell Patricia that you were scared that someone was following you?
No, I did not tell her.
Because you weren't scared?
No. How would someone be not scared when someone is following him, another car is following him?
You didn't call 911?
No, I did not call the police.
Why not?
This was my next step after stopping by the cab and check if there was any of my friends at the cab.
But you didn't ever call 911?
ولكن ما اتصلت أبدا بالشرطة. No.
He goes on to say that he thought the person that was after him was not going to harm his girls. When asked what he did with his... He says that he left it in the car. When asked why he didn't take it with him, if he was so scared, he said he didn't take it with him because he didn't think that he would need it. So he just hid by himself.
I was thinking someone sent them after me to harm me and not my girls.
So, what did you do with your gun?
Because it's a dangerous area where I'm going to work at night, I would take my gun with me and place it between the seat and the cubby, but not every day.
You left the gun in the car, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Then he says that he didn't bring the with him that night because he didn't think he would need it.
But you were so scared you didn't take the gun with you.
How would I carry gun and go in the street with it?
You were scared, right?
I hid by myself. I didn't think I would need the gun.
But you used the gun for protection, right?
In the car, I always take it, like I said, normally with me at night if something happened to protect myself. That night, I did not think to take it with me. I was thinking there's nothing harmful.
Right. There's nothing harmful because nobody was following you.
Was I dreaming that somebody was following me then?
You tell me. You had a 9mm handgun in that car, correct?
Like I said, when I work at night, it has a spot between the two seats. I place it there, fearing anything would be harmful.
It's a 9mm, right? 9mm handgun.
Yes.
Next, the state asks Yaser if a father's job is to protect his children.
Father's job is to protect his children, right?
Certainly, for sure, but at that night, I did not think they will be harmed by their own friends.
You don't even know who was in this car behind you, do you?
Yes, but I had expectation.
Expectations of what?
That somebody sent them after me personally to hurt me.
Meanwhile, he didn't even know who was in the car to begin with, okay? So, being that he's the only one on trial here, if he was really telling the truth, he still wouldn't know who his daughters, right? When asked why he didn't show up to their funerals.
You didn't show up to their funerals.
Yes, because of the unfair and hateful media coverage at that time. The coverage was negative. If you look up the history of all the crimes or of incidents like this incident that happened with me, you wouldn't see any case that was covered the way mine was covered.
And that was more important than going to their funerals.
There was no evidence, but all the accusation was against me, and I did not go. How would I go?
You were going to sell them to Egypt to the highest bidder, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Next, the state asks about in the home. He says, how could he be married for 30 straight years and nobody ever called 911 on him? If he was basically saying if I was, then how could I be married for 30 straight years and nobody, such as like neighbors, call 911 on me? Then he says Patricia's lying. And then he drops the bomb, the big one.
Patricia's lying. It never happened.
Patricia's lying. So you didn't threaten to kill Patricia and tell her that you would never be found.
Women are protected more than men in America. there is no such a thing, I did not do it, and who would?
Women are protected more than men in America, huh? Is that what you said?
بتقول النساء محميين ها؟
مفيش مرة أمريكية بتخاف تتصل مع الشرطة، مفيش، ما بيحصلش.
No American woman would fear calling the police if she was abused.
No American woman would what?
Fear calling the police or tell the police if she was abused.
What do you mean by that?
شو بتقصد؟
أقصد إن القانون في ظنبهم يعني مفيش واحد بيهدد بتخاف تتصل بالشرطة أو على الأقل تقول لا.
Laws protect women. At least she could tell her family, for example.
Okay.
When questioned about Patricia leaving him, Yaser claims that she never left more than 2 times that he can remember. He goes on to say that she always came back because she wasn't scared of him, to which the state responds that she always came back because he demanded her to come back.
Patricia left you several times, didn't she?
Yes, and I don't remember how many times.
She left you a lot, didn't she?
Not too many times, maybe maximum 2 times as far as I remember.
She always came back.
Meaning she was not afraid I would.
She always came back because you demanded she came back, didn't you?
This is not true.
Next, she goes into the missing persons report that was filed by Yaser on December 26, 2007. Yaser claims that he did not know why they left, driving home the point that he didn't call any hospitals. He called the police and told them to bring the girls home because he knew that the girls were not harmed.
Let's talk about the missing persons report that you filed. December 26, 2007. Do you remember calling Louisville PD about Patricia and the girls leaving you?
I would say that too. I don't remember dates.
But you remember calling the police.
Yes, I do.
And you knew they left because they were so scared of you.
When I came home, I did not know the story, and I don't know why they left to begin with.
Well, you knew they were not harmed.
I called the police because I wanted to know where they were.
Right, but you knew they were not harmed.
I'm a husband who came home, did not find my wife or girls. I had to ask where they were, simply.
You didn't call any hospitals?
Yes.
First of all, I called the police.
And you asked for them to bring your girls home.
Definitely, I wanted to know where they were.
Because you knew they were unharmed.
At that time, I did not know if they fled or not fled, who they were with, or what not. So I did not know details at that time.
Then the state asks him who brought him home from the Omni Hotel that night. He claims he was never at the Omni Hotel that night and that his phone was in the car. Then he's questioned about not having a specific plan.
Going back to the night that Amina and Sarah were murdered, who picked you up from the Omni?
أمني يوم الوفاة أو الحادثة مين أخذك من الأمني؟
مين قال إن أنا كنت في الأمني؟ يعني هي جايبة القصة دي منين؟ أنا مش فاهم.
Who said I was at the Omni? I don't understand where this story came from. I wasn't at the Omni.
And you turned off your phone?
كنت في تليفونك. The phone was in the car.
And you had no plan.
وما كانش عندك خطة مخطط؟
مخطط لإيه؟
Why? Why would I have a plan?
مخطط لإيه؟
And what kind of plan?
Objection, not responsive, Your Honor.
I don't understand your question.
You said you had no specific plan, you hoped a friend would just pick you up and give you a ride.
ما كانش عندك خطة، كنت متأمل صديق ليك ياخدك ويوصلك إلى مكان ما. I never said that.
You just testified to that on direct. You said you had no specific plan, you hoped your friend would give you a ride home.
أنت قلت إنه ما كانش عندك خطة ولكن كانت يعني تتأمل إنه حد من صحابك يوصل.
حد من صحابي عشان يجيب لي رأي في نص وسط عيوني فهي بتتكلم على أنهي منطقة.
It depends which location you're talking about.
When you ran away from the cab.
لما هربت من سيارة التاكسي.
بالظبط ما كانش عندي خطة زي ما أنا قلت بالظبط كده.
Like I said exactly, I did not have a plan. And I was for real looking for someone I know, one of my friends.
The state asks him who picked him up, to which Yaser replies that nobody picked him up, that he walked. When asked who picked him up from the Waffle House, he says nobody picked him up from the Waffle House. Okay. So the state says, where did you go after the Waffle House? Because you didn't go home. So he said that he was hanging around the area, but he doesn't remember how long.
Who picked you up?
مين وداك وصلك؟ أخذك يعني. No one, I walked by feet.
Who picked you up at the Waffle House?
الوافل هاوس. مين أخذك من الوافل هاوس؟ I never said anyone took me or picked me up from the Waffle House.
Where did you go? You didn't go home? Where did you go? You didn't go to your house.
بيتك ورحت فين؟ I'm familiar with that area. I was hanging around in that area.
Until when?
لإمتى؟ A while. I don't remember how long.
So you just stayed at the Waffle House until 2020? You just hung out at the Waffle House?
Waffle House was just a stop. Then I left because I was avoiding public areas.
So he never actually answers a question. Like, but I guess when you're lying, that's, you know. So the state says, then you ended up at the Jordan house with Hasim and Islam, correct? And he claims that the house was abandoned and he used it. And then she rips him apart. Again.
And then you got to the Justin house with your brother Yasin and Islam.
بعد كده رحت على البيت بتاع جاستن انت وابنك اسلام واخوك ياسين. No, not right away.
But you ended up there. That's where you were arrested, in the Justin house.
This was after the house was abandoned and I used it.
This is where you slept, isn't that right? You see that picture there? That cot, that's where you slept?
السرير ده هو السرير اللي نمت عليه صحيح؟ This was a storage room inside the garage. No.
So you slept in a bed in the house?
نمت بسرير. Does it have to be a bed? Why you're asking about the bed?
I'm asking the question. Did you sleep in a bed in the house?
نمت في سرير في البيت. Sometimes I would use the couch.
Comfortable?
مريح.
Objection relevance.
Were you comfortable?
I didn't have a problem.
You didn't have a problem. You had food to eat, correct?
صحيح. I had food.
You had something to drink? for nourishment?
ومشروب أيضا حاجة تشربها. Definitely.
Air conditioning?
وتكييف. I was not using air conditioning.
Okay, so no air. So you were uncomfortable? You were hot?
إذا ما كنتش. Not necessarily I was using.
Not necessarily?
ليس ضروري. Wasn't important to me.
Right. It's important that you remained hidden, right?
I never said I wasn't hiding in the house. I used the house.
You were hiding in that house, right?
Not all the time.
So you went to the police? You made a statement?
Wait a minute. Which house you're talking about?
The Justin house, where you were found and arrested.
Justin. مكان اللي وجدوك فيه. What about the Justin house?
Okay, sorry. I don't want to keep playing like clips of this questioning, but I could never recap this cross-examination and give it the justice that it deserves. I just can't. I'm sorry. That's why I keep playing these clips for you. I could never give this the justice it deserves.
I need to know.
You can't understand me now? You don't understand what I'm asking you?
Yeah. I want you to repeat the question.
Okay, so you're talking to me in English now. You understand me very clearly, don't you?
I didn't say I don't know English. I know some English, of course.
Yeah, Your Honor, I want to object to her badgering the witness.
I think at this point, even the poor translator was scared. She asks him if he knew that he was on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. He says he knew, but he didn't watch much television. He goes on to say that in the history of America, here we go. He goes on to say that in the history of America, no other case has gotten the type of attention that his case has gotten. This could not be further from the truth. This could not be further from the truth. I actually think he got off semi-easy. The state goes on to say, if you did your daughters, why did you hide for 12 years? He claims that because he believes that behind the coverage of the trial, there was a secret agenda. And because the media was steered in a certain direction, he would not get a fair trial. Of course.
You knew you were on the FBI 10 most wanted list, didn't you?
Of course.
Because you watch the news.
Sometimes.
You had a TV.
I'm not a big TV watcher, so sometimes.
And you said the coverage was too harsh.
وقلت ذكرت قبل كده التغطية الإعلامية كانت شديدة.
أنا بقول شوفي كل تاريخ أمريكا في قضية عنف أسري اتردد بهذه الطريقة. في كل تاريخ أمريكا.
I don't think in the entire history of America there is a case that has the coverage that my case had.
Too harsh, right?
شديدة جدا.
كان فيها عنصرية شديدة و double standard.
There was prejudice and there was double standard to it.
If you didn't kill your daughters, why did you hide for 12 years?
إذا أنا قتلت بناتك اتخبيت لمدة 12 سنة ليه؟
لأن التغطية السيئة كان طبيعي إن مش هيكون في فرترايل بسبب التغطية. هذه التغطية كان وراها أجندة أخرى خفية.
Because I believe behind this coverage there was a secret agenda, and then all the media was steered in a certain direction and fueled against me, that I will not get a fair trial.
Overseas.
Interpreter would like a clarification?
كانت في أجندة لتحقيق هدف سياسي overseas.
The agenda that I was talking about, maybe the agenda that was maybe put into for certain sides in the Middle East, but that's why I escaped, because I was afraid I'm not going to get a fair trial.
And you remained hidden?
Yes.
The defense closes by asking him if he would do anything to be able to go back in time and not leave Amina and Sarah alone in that cab that night to run away on foot. And if he loved Amina and Sarah.
Did you love your daughters?
أكيد الأفلام اللي عندي كتابة تؤكد الرحلات اللي كنت بطلع بيها يعني في الفاكيشن أنا my life is fancy على الفيديو كلها have hundreds of
Certainly, and my trips with them, my vacation with them, the hundreds of tapes that I have with them and for them certainly proves it.
FYI, Yaser Saeed, home videos do not prove that you love your children. They do not prove that you even like your children. The only thing that they prove is that you know how to work a camcorder.
Amina and Sarah were great people. I mean, I think what makes me sad about all of this is that all the people that are here supporting them across the globe, that you guys did not have the opportunity to meet both of them. They both were the bravest girls that I've ever known. Amina protected my son to the very end, and Sarah shot 9 times fighting for her life, managed to dial 911 and to name her executioner, her father, Yaser Abdel Saeed. I mean, I don't know what more evidence they need than that.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, if you're still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you so, so, so very much. I was going to do 4, 5, and 6 together, but then I was scared that this was going to get really long. So this is 4 and 5, and then I'm going to try to get day 6 out to you as quickly as possible. Thank you again to Jon Chrymes. His channel is linked in the description. If you have not checked out his channel yet, go over there, say hello, subscribe. He's a really nice guy. And until next time, guys, be safe out there.